Hello, everybody. The show's not quite over. We've got another overtime episode for you this evening. It is the opening day of the third group of Blast Fall groups, and I'm yet again joined by Moses and Freya. Hello, guys.
What's up, man?
Hey.
Not too much. Big chillin'. You guys are color-coded today. That's cute.
Yeah.
We arranged it this morning.
We do discuss this, yeah. That's something that Maniac does very well. I'm going to give props to him. When I first started at Blast, it was like, he come in with the suits and we pick a tie out, you pick a pocket square to go with my dress.
Leave it to Maniac.
He did do a really nice thing as well. I haven't admitted this on there, but I did burn a hole in my dress.
I remember that.
Last season. Yeah, I put an iron on it, massive gaping hole, and I had to wear just a summer dress that I was wearing to the shooter. It was awful.
She was so excited. She showed up. She's like, guys, look what I got today.
Was it a new dress?
Yeah, it was like, I thought it was satin.
Makes it better.
Turned out to be plastic. Burn a hole straight through it. But I had a blue dress on, luckily. I don't know why I was wearing it that day. But Maniac was like, you know what, I'm going to take an L and I'm going to mismatch one of my shirts and my pocket squares just so like I can match you.
Like, as if that evens it out.
I was gonna say, I'm sure the audience noticed as well.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Leave that to Matsu, by the way. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Sorry.
Yeah, my bad.
It's all right. We left you out
with
of
me,
the
you got to get the cheers in real quick.
Leave it to Matsu that think that, mismatching a pocket square is the equivalent of ruining a dress. You had to step up your game today, because normally, anybody who shares a desk with Maniac has to take it to the next level. Normally, you're sat next to Anders.
Yeah, but I've been, in the early stages of my career, it was Semler doing all that stuff back in the day.
True.
Yes.
So I've had experience. I have my whole Semler wardrobe back at home to match him. I just brought that out of retirement, dusted it off a little bit.
Yeah.
And now we're here.
But
I do get to hang out with Anders, which is great because he's been wearing the same jacket for like 7 years.
Very easy to match.
So super simple. I know what I'm getting every day.
Today we didn't know what we were going to get, in my opinion. This second matchup, I thought, so here's another thing you guys may not know about Freya, and I appreciate this about you, Freya. You take the prediction game very seriously. But you do it really politely and nonchalantly, so people don't realize that you're masterminding. But so am I. So that's the thing, is we have this common ground, okay? There are some people who just predict their favorite teams, like someone who would think, I don't know, OG over NAVI. If any thoughts come to mind. Anders went with MIBR the other day because sometimes you're shooting for follows. There's different strategies we can bring into the prediction game. And Freya and I, we've got that common ground. We'll leave it to the last minute. I remember one time last season, it was, it's that crunch time for predictions. It was like the second to last day. Me and Freya are neck and neck. And the only people who hadn't submitted them were us, because mine would depend on hers if I wanted to take the lead. And I knew what we were doing silently because we weren't in the same room, but ultimately Freya won. I tip my hat to you.
Thank you.
And today...
Still sting a little bit?
A little bit. That's why I'm talking about it, I'm trying to, you got to talk about things to get through trauma, so here we are. FaZe versus Complexity to close out the day. I will honestly say I did not expect the Complexity system, after all the iterations of it that we've seen, kind of come in and, grow over time, but I don't think any version of Complexity for the last year has started off as hot as this one.
No, I guess not. It's kind of crazy to think how many or how long they've had so many changes for. Because when you said a year, it's like, oh yeah, God, we're really going back to when Obo was leaving. It must have been this time last year, right? That even before.
Around this, who knows?
Yeah.
It's so long ago because there's so many steps.
Yeah,
That's the problem, right?
Trying to go
if there was only 2 changes, we'd be on it. But at this point, it's just Complexity is a rotating door. So.
Well, at least the nice thing is, like he said in the interview that we just had with him, he was like, so I had to explain everything to NATO when he came in for config. Just before that, I had to explain everything to config when we were starting the boot camp, and then he got injured. Then he explained it to NATO. Then he explained it to Peacemaker, and now then he had to explain it to S-Tag as well when he came in, and now he's got to explain it to Coldzera. So, at the very least, you're getting your in-game leader very comfortable with the strategies that he wants to call. He knows them hands down.
True.
I always like to find the positive.
Yeah.
Well done. Silver lining.
I think it's with the most unlikely person that I thought it would be this smooth with, but then, I don't know, maybe that's just stupid of me. Because I think I was on the same wavelength as you. It's the role clashing, just that's not the style of player that they're looking for, really.
So during the cast, I think that Mohan touched on this really nicely, and I'm really grateful. We keep referencing this S-Tag interview we did for the Push to Talk podcast, and when it comes out, I think it's going to shine a light on the game that just happened today. When we were watching Poison on Nuke T-side entry with a rifle, That's not the poison we know. When we saw blameF playing inside of the pack with his team on Ancient and coldzera really taking on this role of like a hard lurk, coming in on these really impactful late round moments, it's like, it does truly feel like Complexity's roles are being less and less like restrictive. And I thought coldzera coming in, as you're alluding to, right? It's like, okay, now we got too many slow players. We've got too many guys trying to do the same thing. But I think we're starting to get different looks from everyone. And maybe that's what pieced it all together today.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a little bit. There's going to be a lot of problem solving and creative problem solving. And I mean, I kind of talked about on the desk too, it's almost like a mini honeymoon period because you have all these new players coming in and out. So you're still always kind of like in the mindset of trying to figure out and discover and get comfortable with the new player coming in. So you get a little bit of like a leeway in terms of your mentality. It's less frustrating because you know there's a new player. And I mean, I think at this point as well, like players are all individually so experienced and play so much Counter-Strike that it's, it's no longer like what we used to see in CS, where if you brought a new player in, it was going to take like, 6 months to really ramp it up as he learns things. Or if you bring in a new player and it's not like a star player, it's not really going to have any impact. Players are good enough now to where I feel like we can start slotting them in and not seeing too big of a drop-off.
Especially with the older ones, right? I tried to make that valid. I tried to make that point. I almost called it a valid point, as if I'm reassuring myself that with a new guy, right? Let's say like Lucky, for example, to Astralis. That's one where like I'm not expecting him to leave his mold. I'm not expecting him to be an all-around player. Banking on that experience, whatever not. So it is cool that, and I think it's a bit of Jason Lake's maybe equation, because if you look at the pickups when it comes to Complexity, at least the last three have JKS, Esatag, and now obviously coldzera. Whether how long he stands in, there's question marks around Cole, but I do think Jason Lake recognizes that value and wants to throw it into the roster.
Yeah.
Historically, going back to like when Jason Lake first entered the scene, way long ago. He's always been someone who tries to build teams with the first priority being like mentality. And like, heart, as he probably put it. And those are two really important qualities to have in players. And I think, for me, even though we're obviously a lot of conversation about Complexity moving forward is going to be about coldzera, I actually think probably Esatag is perhaps the most important pickup that team has made recently, just because I rate Esatag very high as a player, but also in terms of like when I hear and read his interviews, when I listen to him talk about the game, when I hear things from other people who play with him, it's all positive. And I think that's a very important quality to have. And obviously he found something very similar in someone like blameF in terms of how hard he works and like how much he wants to win. And that's what propelled them to their success initially at London, back whenever the hell that event happened. I don't really remember.
It's kind of nuts. Like, I love that you brought up the point on the desk that actually we weren't really talking about Esatag at all.
No,
just,
forgot about him
coming in.
now.
Yeah, it's like actually he's really new to the lineup as well.
Very new, very good, and I mean he's been. That's what's so funny about it is like he's ever since Mad Lions at Flashpoint 1, like he has been one of those players that's been like hyped up to be one of the next coming up, stars from the Danish scene, and automatically coldzera gets added to a team, and it's like everyone forgets he's there.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like the name brand of coldzera just overshadows everything.
Side note to the Jason Lake topic, first time, I think the only time I met him actually was when we went to visit, I think we were doing the last season of ECS. We went to visit the facility.
Okay.
It's so
Dallas.
nice, isn't
Is it
it?
nice?
Oh my God,
Yeah, it's really
you haven't
cool.
been?
I haven't.
You've been?
I've been.
Yeah, I went with James and he got the whole leg massage treatment, everything going on. Had the little that like massage gun
Yeah,
that
little
Anders
Theragun.
also has behind the scenes. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but it's really cool to see. And obviously the players can't neutralize out of the moment because of COVID.
Right.
But hopefully when we finally get back.
It's also right across the street from
Dallas Cowboys.
Cowboys
Yeah.
Stadium and Cowboys like corporate office, or their practice field, not the stadium.
That was the most nuts thing, was looking out
Did you give you the interview in the
window.
Cowboys thing?
No. We looked outside, just like one of the windows of the facility, and just seeing the then Complexity's players' faces up on the huge LED boards outside the stadium was just like, man, this is so legit.
So they have like this outside like beer garden almost with like the giant football LED screens, and like when the Cowboys are playing games, they'll play it on like the big screens and people will come watch, and it's like a mini practice field that during the day, like, you can go play like touch football or pick up football. But yeah, they throw their faces up there all the time, and
so cool.
yeah, it's a really cool little environment over there.
I watched a Complexity video that was like a drone fly-through of that entire
Facility?
area. Yeah, the entire facility, and like they left certain doors open in the stadium so that it was both an outdoor massive overhead shot into these like really tiny winding tunnels. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those spots where it's like, you know, everything's bigger in America, and it feels like that.
Well, everything's bigger in America, everything's bigger in Texas,
Oh, man.
as well. Like,
Texas is nuts.
Texas goes hard in the paint.
I couldn't believe, it was when we were doing that same ECS, and I had to go, like, we needed some marker pens for a signing session. Like, nobody had brought any with them, so it's like, oh, I'll get a target. And the fact that I literally couldn't walk to the target, even though I could see it in the distance. And also the fact that it's just single-story buildings in Texas is so crazy to me coming from London. There's no skyscrapers, there's so much room.
Nobody talks about the negatives of Texas all that much.
Sure.
I've lived in Texas a couple times in my life, and I won't go back. I'm not a huge fan of Texas. I don't mind visiting, it's a cool place to visit, but like you said, like, you have to drive like 20 minutes. It's kind of like California, like LA. It's like
North American experience.
But without the lines.
Well, that's a very big generalization here.
Okay.
But I will say, like, Texas is one of those places where you're just like, how do you guys not have public transit? Everywhere is like a 30-minute drive. Everywhere is like 15 minutes on the highway. Same with LA. And that part's really, really painful to me, at least.
Yeah.
Sure. OG took a map today. Did that surprise either of you?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest surprise for me of the day. A pleasant surprise, though. I like that.
Agreed.
I like that they're putting up something.
It's like, for me, it was this weird spot because obviously they had like great success in the group stage of ESL Pro League. They go 5-0. They're looking phenomenal. They're in this boot camp environment, and OG are one of these teams that we have to put like a pin in when they're on, like I was about to say on land, but side by side, right? When they're side by side and all together, it feels like OG unlocked that next level. And this is an event where they weren't together. So last time this happened, when they returned back to being separated, I just kind of like, you know, I reduced the stock I put into OG by default. Okay. And I was kind of expecting that same thing here. You know, Flames as well playing remote is one thing. So suddenly they're playing NAVI. They get absolutely smashed in the first map, and I'm thinking, okay, a quick 2-0, early night. They turned it around. I was pleasant, like you said, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Do they have a chance in this group after you've seen FaZe and after you've seen Complexity? Do you think OG's gonna?
I think each of the last 3 teams outside of NAVI all have a chance to go out in second place. I don't think there's any clear-cut favorite of those 3 teams. No. I think they all have their own issues and their own ifs, and I think they all have, you know, we've all seen those teams. Obviously, if you look at Cologne for FaZe was a great run, and that's a showing of how good they can be. OG just had a pretty good showing at EPL, and they had that second place at IEM Summer, so we've seen how good they can be. Complexity, unfortunately, you can't really see that peak nearly as much because of all the roster changes, but you've still seen them competitive and admirably fighting with these changes, you know, throughout over the past like month or so. So, you know, those 3 teams I really kind of just have at the same kind of level, to be quite honest with you.
Okay. I think I would put Complexity a step lower just because of that rotating door with the name changes. Yeah. But I do feel like truly now, in hindsight and in reflection, having just watched that last BO3, I'm like, you know, FaZe have just been disappointing online.
Yeah.
That flash in the pan of playing Cologne and playing LAN, and like obviously when you put those names on LAN and you know, I think of all the examples of teams that got like a LAN buff, other than G2 who were in the finals, it had to have been FaZe. I think FaZe was the only other team that experienced that step up in terms of like competition. Obviously because they're coming from such a low point, but also because Cologne was a good event for them. Now they're
well, the question is, do you think they can replicate it?
I think once we get back to LAN, yes, but I feel like I overshot today, expecting them to be able to, like, you know, like we're waiting for that success story to continue, but it's like, no, we have to be reminded that these guys are a group of players who have struggled in this online realm. Yeah. And at times when Olaf first comes back, it elevates everybody else, but it has to be said, like, that Ancient game would have been the flattest map of the series if it wasn't for Brokey.
Yeah.
So where is FaZe outside of Brokey on their map pick? It was kind of sketchy. So,
we question that map pick on the desk too. I don't really understand why they like FaZe, or I mean, why they like Ancient so much. I don't get it.
I wonder how much it was of what they thought was going to be a punish pick, because I was surprised when blameF was saying, you know, actually, this is one of the first maps we practiced.
I even said on the desk, I was like, there's no way they practiced this map first. This is at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of priority, and Blame was like, yeah, we did that one first.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
yeah, because he was like, well, we thought people were going to try and do that, so like 200 IQ it, flip the switch, and actually, no, we've practiced this quite a lot. Which
you know,
is good.
blameF always, I think, kind of ahead of the curve. I think there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of people in CS who work hard, but I don't know if anybody works as hard as blameF. Like that's kind of his mantra. It's his. It almost feels like it's his personality, right? He is like the ox. He is the workhorse.
Yeah.
This is, I think, a smaller detail. Again, we're talking about somebody like S-Attack who gets overshadowed because of this rotating door of players. But Peacemaker for Kita.
Peacemaker.
Excuse me, Peacemaker.
It's all right.
The Connorism.
It's Apex. I've been playing too much Apex, and there's a shotgun.
Yeah.
Oh my
I've seen
god! It's like the fourth time I've done it.
It's okay, you like Apex
Peacemaker.
more than-
Yeah. Keeping the peace, perhaps. But that's somebody who I think, like, you know, coaches take time to implement impact, in my opinion. I don't have firsthand experience, but that's always kind of my take. I don't expect a coach to have immediate impact. I feel like they, unlike players who can just come in and hit headshots, right, and just like bolster firepower or whatever.
Yeah.
Coaches generally take time. So this is a coach who has been all around the block, but doesn't have a long period of time or like a track record of like accolades that we can point to be like, he achieved this, he achieved this. It's not like Zonic, who went on to lead a team to win a bunch of majors. It's not like Extaz of Vitality, who has like reinvented the roster with 2 new players. So I think, like you were mentioning, Jason Lake's somebody who goes for people who have heart, somebody who have passion, somebody who can like sell themselves in terms of wanting to win. Do we place him in that group of people?
I think so. From a limited experience of like meeting him in actual events.
That's the thing. He's been on the fringe.
Yeah, and it's all I'm thinking of all the DreamHack Opens I've done, basically, where he's there and he's the one that's really, really pushing the team and giving us all the interviews. Like, you know, I've never been denied an interview by a Peacemaker either. It's really cool. And I think I would put him in that category just because of his morale. And I can't remember which team. It might have been Mad Lions, but like Mad Lions pre-Flashpoint 1, I think it was the end of 2019. But they were sort of still coming together, and there was a lot of young guns coming, and it was him that was kind of uniting them as a team unit. And I really liked that about him, which is why I was really excited to see him coming on Complexity and then Cold having so much faith in him as well.
So not only do they have faith in him, but the crazy thing is normally, you know, for somebody to put faith and stock into something, it's because they're coming off of a hot streak, right? I was kind of stunned when I saw this pickup in terms of coach, because there's nothing previous to this. It's not like you're picking him up at the high of his career.
Yeah.
That was what I found a little bit odd. And that's kind of like a similarity to coldzera as well. You know, these are second chances and biggest chances for some of these people in the last few years.
Well, I think I have a couple thoughts. I think with Peacemaker, I haven't spoken to anyone who's worked with him who had any issues with like his work ethic necessarily. I think it's usually been during a lot of the early stages of his coaching career, like I think he had a problem in terms of his personality clashing and handling personalities and making sure things don't like go off the rails. I think he had some issues in that sense. But I think that's actually going to be a benefit at this point. You know, like he was a coach in the early days of CSGO, and he's been a coach this whole time. Yeah. Personally, having stepped right into coaching, you know, one of the best teams in the world with no experience whatsoever, I wish at some point I would have had experience getting my ass kicked or failing with like some average NA team back in the day that I could bring forward. So I think that experience is actually going to be super valuable. And then I think the other thing you have to bring up is obviously how much did picking up coldzera depend on Peacemaker being there? Like, is there a connection there with like the 2 Brazilian players coming into this roster?
Sounded like
was it like if I'm gonna come, I need this guy here with me, or something along those lines. But everyone I've spoken to that's worked with Peacemaker, that's had him as a coach, said he knows his game. Fallen's been particularly outspoken about how much he respects Peacemaker's knowledge and how much he thinks he does some good work as well. So I mean, it's mostly been positives, but certainly when you take on this kind of a challenge for Peacemaker with his long career of coaching, complexity is going to define a lot in terms of how we look back on his career.
I'm really glad that we got a little bit of context as well from blameF in the post-game interview, because I don't know whether you saw the pre-match interview that James did, which was fantastic with both Cold and Blame. But it was there were some things that Blame said that
it was odd.
We were it was
contrast. I remember it was kind of like conflicting
information, and also Blame saying, you know, he asked obviously about Peacemaker and his addition to the team, how he's been working with it, and Blame kind of said like something along the lines of he's trying to bring in a lot of new ideas, and it didn't sound like he was very excited about that. But then in the post game, it's clear that Blame's obviously got a hell of a lot on his plate anyway, so to have additional new ideas thrown at him, I can kind of see why he had that attitude. He
was probably just like, pump the brakes, please, for the love of God. I've gone over the same like 10 things like 4 times now. Like, just give me a minute. I need to chill. Yeah, Blame did in the post game, and look, I don't know Blame all that well. Basically at all, actually, but he struck me as someone who's very tired and very stressed at the moment.
Right.
He seemed like he needed a nap.
Yeah. And that's something that I've always kind of worried about because blameF, exploded onto the scene. For Jason Lake to kind of put him as like the figurehead of Complexity when they created the juggernaut, like it seemed like a massive undertaking for him, right? We heard the story of how Jason Lake flew out to Denmark to meet with Blame in person, sit down and basically have this mano a mano and say like, I'm about to give you the chance of your life. Are you gonna take everything I throw at you? Yeah. And he has. And the question sort of to me was always like, well, how much can one person handle? And he is somebody who I think he is very honest and straightforward when it comes to like his work ethic and his role and his responsibility and the burden that's like I think coming with that. Yeah. And also I would say blameF was somebody who constantly praised Kita as the previous head coach of Complexity. He would say that it was him and me and Kita sitting down doing demos, doing reviews, feeding information to the players. I think Kita was blameF's right-hand man. Yeah. And so I do understand, I think, his position where you lose that head coach for a second. You're not quite sure who's coming in immediately right thereafter. You've built this entire team. So far, any success with Complexity was this, this duality between blameF and Kita, and now it's got to be Peacemaker. Peacemaker strikes me as somebody who like would come in with his own thoughts and want to also, again, if we're talking hunger, right? Like let's say blameF sat down with that first initial system. He wanted to take everything he could. Peacemaker's got his biggest shot of his life. Maybe biggest shot in the late stage of his career. Okay. And I could see how he would be ferocious coming in and wanting to take over a bunch of stuff. And if you're blameF, you've got your hands tight on the reins, but they're also, like you're saying, like white knuckled because he's just hanging on and there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of, I think, things outside of his control with the rumors of config changing out as well. Like, I don't envy blameF. I respect blameF because of what he accomplishes and like what he takes on, but I don't envy this position. And I can see, I think, innately where he's lost a bit of his support system, and you've got to rely on somebody who you don't really know. Yeah, I mean, it's always a rough. I mean, look, I went through a lot of the same things with Liquid as well. But like, I mean, just for blameF's situation, just to put it into context, yeah, he lost his coach that he leaned on. He lost his star player that is very tough to handle, and then he's had what? three new players, I think, in the past month and a half, 6 weeks or so. And I mean, it was the same. It was similar for me when I came in to coach. They had, we were still trying to get over the Nitro loss. Obviously, Russell then took off. You had Grim coming in, and then we had Fallen coming in. There's a lot of moving parts, and then you have a lot of ideas on things that you want to try and do and enact to improve the team, whether it's inside the game or outside of the game. And obviously, there's sometimes some things just have to get dropped off the list, and it's tough because I can imagine Peacemaker came in doing his research and had an entire idea of ways he can adapt the game plan and change things up and different things he wanted to try. And you don't always have the time to implement them all right away. So some things have to hit the back burner. It's a stressful experience for everyone involved. I'm very curious to how it's going to pan out over this weekend, and obviously, time moving forward. Freya, I would love for you to talk me through your predictions for tomorrow. Now that we have Complexity versus NAVI, OG versus FaZe. I need you to tell me so I can steal them. Yeah. Well, actually, you should be stealing them from Maniac, I think. Is he still in the lead? Yes, now that FaZe lost. He's at 10 and a bunch of people are at 9. No, James and Maniac are both at 10, I think. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's why James was, you could probably hear him on the broadcast. It's easy to solve the James Banks issue because he always predicts NAVI no matter what. Yeah, exactly. Now, it just so happens that they are, I can hear him yelling. It just so happens that they've turned into the best team in the world. So, you don't have to worry about that right now because everyone's going to be picking NAVI every single game, which means he could never get a point on it. So it doesn't wander. It just gets negated. It just gets negated. Sure, canceled out. So, you're my threat, Freya. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to pick NAVI. Of course. I don't know for the second game. It's a tough one. I don't know. It is a tough one because obviously, again, right, OG off of a hot streak. Yeah. I picked FaZe today, and I'm not really sure why I picked FaZe. I mean, in hindsight, that's a perfect thing to say. I feel that. I feel that so painfully in the because the exact same reason. I'm like, I picked Complexity today. So. Yeah, I know you did, man. Yeah, goddamn. He believed. I think OG. I've always had a soft spot for OG. Okay. I mean, Mantu is kind of. I mean, he is British. Can we say he's British? You can if you'd like. Yeah. If you need to stretch, go right ahead. Really do. There's not much going around. They do. They do. Yeah. So I will be rooting for OG in the second one. Okay. Yeah. Is that what you wanted? Is that enough info? I think so. Sure. OG and NAVI. Who am I picking? Yeah. Not FaZe. Yeah, I think it's gonna be the exact same as you. I think tomorrow's gonna be one of those days where there's a lot of pressure. Is it complexity over Navi? You gonna do
Yeah,
it?
that sounds great. It sounds like a really smart idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Not gonna happen.
I'll see you there.
Nobody's gonna die on that hill, I don't think. But
I don't know. Anders picked MIBR.
Yeah,
to
I was
beat
gonna say sometimes
whoever.
you never know. You never know. I guess we'll find out tomorrow, and so will all of you at home. That's right, another day of the Blast Fall groups coming at you guys in less than 24 hours. So we'll see you there, most certainly, for another day of action-packed CS. Somebody's qualifying for the Royal Arena. Somebody's getting sent down to the showdown. Jason, do you have a closing thought?
No, I was just gonna see if you want to make this into a double overtime show, and we could just go.
Another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to do one tomorrow? No, we'll bring it back. We'll see you guys soon enough for another day of Blast Premier action.